When I was 28 years old in San Francisco, I had a promising job at an office. Though I was alone in the world, I felt content with my life. Every Saturday afternoon, when not working, I would sail my little boat on San Francisco Bay. One fateful Saturday, I sailed too far, and the strong afternoon wind pushed my sailboat out of the bay into the Pacific Ocean. That night, when I had lost all hope, a small British brig spotted me and took me aboard. The brig was headed to London, and the voyage proved long and stormy. I worked as a sailor to pay for my passage. Arriving in London, my clothes were old and dirty, with only $1 in my pocket. That dollar sustained me for the first 24 hours, but during the next day, I neither ate nor slept. Around 10 o'clock the following morning, walking through Portland Place, I saw a child pass by holding a large pear. After taking one small bite, the child tossed the pear onto the street. I stopped, staring at it hungrily, desperately wanting that pear. Each time I tried to retrieve it, someone would walk past, causing me to quickly turn away and wait. After several failed attempts, I grew desperate and decided to grab it regardless of who might see. At that moment, a gentleman opened a window behind me and called, "Come in here, please." A well-dressed servant led me into a beautiful room, where two elderly gentlemen sat discussing something important over breakfast. I couldn't help staring at their food, my hunger overwhelming. Unknown to me then, these gentlemen had made a peculiar bet several days before. The two old gentlemen were brothers who had been arguing about a strange subject for days. They decided to settle their argument with a bet, as the English often do. The Bank of England had issued £2 million banknotes for a public transaction with a foreign country. England used one note, while the other remained in the bank. Brother A claimed that if an honest and intelligent stranger arrived in London without friends or money, except for the £1 million note, he would starve to death. Brother B disagreed, and bet £20,000 that the stranger would survive for 30 days with the note and avoid prison. After Brother A obtained the note from the bank and prepared a letter, they sat by their window, watching for the right candidate. They saw many honest faces that weren't intelligent enough, intelligent faces that weren't honest, and faces that were both honest and intelligent but weren't poor enough. Others were honest, intelligent, and poor but weren't strangers. When they spotted me, they believed they'd found their perfect subject. After questioning me and hearing my story, they handed me an envelope, instructing me not to open it until I reached my hotel room. Confused and feeling like the subject of a joke, I left their house. The pair was gone, which further annoyed me. Some distance from their house, I opened the envelope and discovered money inside. Without reading their letter, I rushed to the nearest eating establishment and ate heartily. When I finally took out the envelope to pay, I almost fainted. It was a banknote worth $5 million. The owner of the eating place stared at the note too, both of us speechless. When I asked for change, he apologized profusely, saying he couldn't break such a large note. He insisted I could pay whenever I wanted, assuming I was a wealthy gentleman playing jokes by dressing poorly. I hurried back to the gentleman's house to correct what I thought was their mistake, but their servant informed me they had left for the continent for a month. The rest of the family was away in Egypt and India. Confused and foggy-headed, I remembered their letter. It explained that I was chosen as an honest and intelligent but poor stranger, and the money was mine for 30 days. At the end of that time, I should return to their house. They had a bet on me, and if they won, I could have any job with any salary I wanted. The letter bore no signature, address, or date. After an hour of contemplation in a park, I reached a decision. The two gentlemen were playing a game I didn't understand, betting on me. I couldn't take the note to the Bank of England. They'd either think me insane or a thief. I had to keep the note for a month without losing it. If I helped the old man win his bet, I'd get the job I wanted. This exciting prospect lifted my spirits as I walked through London streets. Every time I passed a tailor's shop, I longed to enter and buy new clothes, but the £1,000,000 note was useless for such small purchases. After passing the same tailor 6 times, I finally entered and quietly asked if they had any old, unattractive suits nobody wanted. 2 men nodded at me, and one took me to a back room to show me several ugly suits, choosing the worst for me. When it came time to pay, I asked if they could wait a few days, explaining I had no small change. The man coldly replied that they could certainly change a large note. When I presented the £1,000,000 note, his smile vanished instantly. The shop owner came over, and upon seeing the note, he berated his employee for offering such poor clothing to a millionaire. They immediately insisted I try on their finest suits, measuring me for morning suits, evening suits, shirts and coats. When I mentioned payment, the owner declared he would wait forever and asked for my address. I told him I was changing homes and would return with my new address. News about me and my banknote spread throughout London. Harris's simple eating place, where I'd first used the note, became famous because I had breakfast there. I lived like an important man at an expensive hotel in Hanover Square, though I often reminded myself this dream would end when the two gentlemen returned. The newspapers wrote about me. Punch magazine drew a funny picture of me on its front page, and people followed me in the streets. Sometimes I wore my old clothes for fun, enjoying shopkeepers changing expressions when I showed them the note. After 10 days in London, I visited the American ambassador, who knew my father from Yale University. He welcomed me warmly and invited me to a dinner party that evening. I was glad to have an important friend, knowing I might need one when the truth about the £1,000,000 note came out. I planned to repay all the shopkeepers who had extended me credit with my first year's salary from the job I hoped to get. The dinner party included 14 distinguished guests: the Duke and Duchess of Shoreditch, their daughter Lady Anne Grace Eleanor de Bohun, the Earl and Countess of Newgate, Viscount Chapside, Lord and Lady Blatherskite, the ambassador and his family, and others. Most importantly, there was a beautiful 22-year-old English girl named Portia Langham. We fell in love within 2 minutes of meeting. Later, another guest arrived, Mr. Lloyd Hastings, who recognized me from San Francisco. He remembered when I worked at Blake Hopkins' office with a small salary, helping him with papers for the Gould and Curry Mining Company. We reminisced about our late-night meal at the What Cheer restaurant, where we had worked for 6 hours on mining company documents. Hastings had invited me to London then to help sell the mine's shares, but I had declined. Now Hastings was in trouble, having failed to sell the shares and spent all his money. When he learned of my apparent wealth, he begged for help, offering to sell me the mine's shares for $1 million. Instead of revealing my true situation, I had an intelligent idea. I offered to use my reputation to help him sell the shares, splitting any profits above the asking price. Within weeks, using my name as a guarantee, we sold the shares for $3 million, earning $1 million each. The end of the month arrived, and I prepared to meet the two old gentlemen. I brought Portia with me, believing her beauty would help secure any job and salary I wanted. To our surprise, when we arrived, Portia knew one of the gentlemen. He was her stepfather. I presented the banknote and reported my success, including my new fortune of £200,000. When offered any job I desired, I asked instead for the position of son-in-law, which was happily granted. The Londoners couldn't stop talking about my adventures with the banknote when they heard the full story. Portia's father cashed the note at the Bank of England and gave us the cancelled note as a wedding present. We framed it and hung it on our wall, where it remains as a reminder that this £1 million note bought only one thing in its life, the most valuable thing in the world, my beloved Portia.